right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring the work of Abdrushan, a spiritual teacher who really went deep on the divine laws of creation. Like, seriously deep.
Yeah, he wrote 3 whole books about it.
3 books. So, he felt like this stuff was important.
Definitely. And I think what's so interesting about Abdrushan is he doesn't just talk about these laws as, like, abstract rules.
Right.
He describes a universe where everything is connected, and every thought, every action, it all has an impact.
So it's like a living system.
Exactly. And when we're out of sync with these laws, it creates a kind of ripple effect.
I see. And he connects this to the idea of a world judgment. That sounds pretty intense.
It does sound dramatic, right? But it's not about some vengeful deity. It's more like a natural consequence of our actions.
Like a universal cause and effect.
Exactly. Abdrushan believes humanity has a very specific role to play in creation.
Okay.
We're supposed to act as a kind of bridge between the spiritual and material realms. Yeah, and when we don't fulfill that role, when we get too caught up in the material world,
Right.
things get out of balance.
So it's not God punishing us, but more like us creating our own problems.
That's a good way to put it. And he's very specific about what causes this imbalance. He points to things like clinging to earthly possessions.
Materialism.
Yes, and also falling into what he calls intellectual conceit.
Intellectual conceit. What does that even mean?
It's like when we think we know it all, When we rely solely on our intellect and ignore our intuition.
So it's about being too stuck in our heads.
Right. He believed true understanding comes from a balance of intellect and intuition.
That makes sense. So it's not just about being smart, but also about being open to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And this is where Abdrushan's ideas about femininity become really interesting. He believed women hold a key to bridging this gap and restoring harmony.
Really? Tell me more about that.
He describes genuine womanhood as a powerful force for good in the world. He uses this beautiful imagery, like comparing a woman's influence to a breath from paradise.
Wow. That's powerful. So what is it about femininity that holds this power, according to Abdrushan?
He talks about this power of gentle working and the ability to bring beauty and harmony into everything.
But I've heard Abdrushan can also be pretty critical of modern women.
Yeah, that's true. He felt many women had lost touch with this innate power
Okay.
by focusing too much on intellect and worldly pursuits.
So he's saying that women have the potential to either uplift or bring down humanity.
It's a complex idea for sure, and it raises a lot of questions about what genuine womanhood really means.
It does, and how we can reclaim this power, especially in a world that often seems to value very different qualities.
Absolutely. And that's something we'll definitely explore more as we dive deeper into Abdrushan's work.
This is fascinating stuff. But before we go any further, I want to hear from you, our listener.
Yes.
What are your initial reactions to these ideas? What resonates with you? And what do you find yourself questioning or pushing back against?
We'll be back in the next part of our deep dive to explore those questions and delve even further into the concepts of spiritual death and the path to redemption.
So until then, keep those minds open and those spirits yearning. There's a whole universe of wisdom waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so we talked about world judgment.
Right, that was pretty intense.
And it connects to this other idea that Abdrushan brings up, this idea of spiritual death. And I think it's something that's really easy to misunderstand.
Yeah. He uses some really strong language, talking about people being atomized and erased from the book of life.
It's powerful imagery.
It is. But is he really talking about actual death?
Not in the physical sense. It's more about a spiritual state.
Okay.
A state of being disconnected from the divine, from our true purpose.
So it's like a metaphorical death. A kind of spiritual stagnation.
Exactly. He uses this image of a rejected stone that gets ground up because it can't be used to build anything.
I see. So it's not God punishing us, but more like a natural consequence of our choices.
Right. Like if we consistently choose to ignore those divine laws, we end up creating this separation from our true selves.
And from the flow of creation, it sounds like.
Exactly. And this leads us to another really interesting idea that Abdrushan explores. He talks about the role of suffering in our spiritual development.
Okay, this is something I was wondering about.
Yeah.
Because he's not exactly shying away from the difficult stuff.
Not at all. He talks about being put through the mills of the divine will. which,
That sounds very fun.
yeah, it doesn't sound pleasant, does it? But he's very clear that suffering isn't meant to be punishment.
Okay.
He sees it as a necessary part of growth.
Like a refining process.
Exactly. He even compares it to refining metal. You
Yeah.
have to put it through intense heat and pressure to make it strong.
So the challenges we face, even the painful ones, they can actually help us become more aligned with the divine.
That's the idea. It's about recognizing that every experience, even the tough ones, they have the potential to teach us something.
That's a good way to look at it. Okay, so we've talked about the potential downsides of not aligning with these laws.
Right.
But what about the flip side? What does it actually look like to walk this path of redemption, to actually create this kingdom of God that Abdrushan describes?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of living in the present moment, really experiencing each step of our journey.
Being mindful, basically.
Yeah. He says that if we're constantly looking back on the past or worrying about the future,
Okay.
we miss out on the opportunities for growth that are right in front of us.
It's like that saying, life is a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And he talks about how we shouldn't try to rush the process because every step is important. He even compares it to climbing a staircase.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, you can't just skip to the top. You have to take each step in order.
So it's about being present, being engaged with every experience.
Yes.
And learning from it so we can continue to grow and align ourselves with the divine.
Exactly. But, Abdrushan doesn't pretend it's easy.
No, I wouldn't imagine so.
He acknowledges the challenges, the temptations, the inner struggles,
Sure.
but he also offers guidance. He talks about these called ones.
Oh, right. The people who have a special role to play in all of this.
Exactly. He describes them as souls who were specifically prepared to help usher in this new era.
So they're like spiritual pioneers, leading the way for the rest of humanity.
That's a good way to put it. And he says they have unique gifts and abilities.
Okay, like what?
Well, he talks about them being gifted with clairvoyance, for example.
Clairvoyance. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And he also says they have a special connection to both the Son of God,
Jesus.
yes, and the Son of Man.
Okay, now who is the Son of Man? Because I know Abdrushan has some interesting ideas about that.
He does. He distinguishes between the Son of God, who he says is Jesus,
Right.
and the Son of Man, who he describes as a separate being,
Okay.
who eternally mediates between God and creation.
So Jesus' mission was specific to a particular time and place,
Right.
while the Son of Man has a more ongoing role.
Exactly. And whether or not we accept that claim,
Right.
I think it's important to remember that his teachings can still offer valuable insights.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, so regardless of who Abdrushan was or wasn't,
Yeah.
he presents this really compelling vision of spiritual evolution
Right.
and the possibility of a more harmonious future.
Yeah.
But how do we actually get there?
Well, he gives us some pretty practical guidance. He talks about the importance of prayer, of aligning our thoughts and actions with those divine laws,
Okay.
and of letting go of all those egotistical desires.
Right. And he's also pretty critical of organized religion, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He felt that the established churches had strayed from the true teachings of Christ and
Yeah.
become more focused on earthly power than spiritual guidance.
He doesn't mince words, does he? I mean, he accuses them of exploiting people's fears and offering empty promises.
He's definitely not afraid to speak his mind, but it all comes from a place of deep concern.
Right.
He genuinely believed these institutions were hindering humanity's spiritual progress.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about the challenges, the potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
But what can we do as individuals to navigate these complex times and contribute to creating this kingdom of God?
Abdrushan stresses the importance of self-awareness, of really examining our own thoughts and beliefs,
Okay.
and identifying anything that might be blocking our spiritual growth.
Like those attachments to material possession.
Yes, and those negative thought patterns, those limiting beliefs.
Right, all that stuff.
He emphasizes the importance of cultivating our intuition, of connecting with that inner wisdom.
And trying to live in accordance with truth.
Exactly. He even talks about how the way we speak can either harmonize with or disrupt those divine laws.
Wait, really? Our words have that much power?
He believed they do. He encourages us to be mindful of how we speak,
See?
to use language that uplifts and resonates with truth and love.
So it's not just what we say, but how we say it.
Right. It's about recognizing the power of our words.
And he also talks about prayer. Right.
Yeah. He says it shouldn't just be a rote, habitual practice,
Okay.
but a genuine outpouring of the soul.
So it's about authenticity, about being real both internally and externally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk. you know?
Embody those divine laws in everything we do.
Exactly.
Hearing you explain all of this,
Yeah.
it's starting to click for me. It's like Abdrushan is giving us this blueprint,
Okay.
not just for personal transformation,
Right.
but for societal transformation, too.
I think you're right. He believed that as more individuals awaken and align themselves with these laws,
Yeah.
it creates a ripple effect that can literally change the world.
That's a powerful thought. But it also brings up some questions.
Of course, yeah.
Like, what about the people who don't choose to awaken? And how do we balance individual freedom with the need for collective harmony?
These are big questions, and they're exactly the kind of questions that Abdrushan tackles head on.
Okay, so we're going to dive into that a little bit more.
Absolutely. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore this idea of a separation of humanity.
Oh, right. That was kind of a cliffhanger at the end of the last episode.
It was. And we'll talk about what it means for the future of our world.
Sounds intense. But before we get there, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Okay.
Abdrushan talks about the dangers of blindly following dogma, of accepting beliefs without really understanding them.
Right.
So I ask you, what beliefs or ideas are you holding on to simply because you've been told they're true? And are those beliefs actually serving you? Or are they holding you back?
That's a powerful question, and one that's definitely worth reflecting on.
Okay. So we're back and ready to tackle this whole separation thing head on.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting, and I'll be honest, a little intense.
Yeah, no kidding. When I hear separation, I immediately picture like a giant chasm opening up and splitting humanity in two.
It's a powerful image. But Abdrushan's talking about something a lot more subtle, a lot more gradual.
So no earthquakes or floods or anything like that?
No, nothing so dramatic. He describes it as a spiritual process, a sorting that happens based on our alignment with those divine laws.
So like a spiritual magnet. Some people are drawn to the light and others are pulled towards the darkness.
That's a good way to think about it. And this separation, it's not about judgment or punishment. It's more like a natural consequence.
Like oil and water just can't mix no matter how hard you shake them up.
Exactly. And this process, it's actually already happening.
Oh, wow. Really?
He says the light is increasing in intensity, and that brings everything to the surface, both the good and the bad.
It's like a cosmic spotlight, revealing what's truly inside each of us.
Exactly. And as this light intensifies, those who are aligned with it, they naturally rise, they evolve.
And those who resist it.
Well, they gravitate towards what resonates with them, which is
The darkness.
right. And this leads us to that other big idea we've been talking about.
The kingdom of God.
Yes. Abdrushan believed this separation was a necessary step in creating this kingdom.
Okay, but what does that actually look like? Is this like a physical place, a utopia on Earth?
He describes it as a world where those divine laws are fully embodied.
Okay.
Where people live in harmony with truth and each other.
So peace, love, understanding, the whole shebang.
Yeah, pretty much. He talks about a society where justice prevails, where that power of femininity is honored.
Sounds pretty idyllic.
Yeah.
But can we really create something like that here on Earth?
Abdrushan believed we could, and that it was our destiny to do so.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. But what about the people who don't choose the light? The ones who don't make it into this kingdom?
This is where things get a bit, little intense. He describes them experiencing a kind of spiritual death.
Spiritual death.
A loss of individuality, a fading of consciousness.
So like they cease to exist.
Not exactly. He talks about their essence being reabsorbed back into creation until they're ready to awaken again in a future cycle.
It's a pretty heavy concept.
Yeah.
So our choices really do have eternal consequences.
He believed they did. But he also emphasized that we always have the power to choose.
We're not just puppets on a string.
No. Free will is paramount in Abdrushan's teachings.
So we're actively shaping our own destiny, both in this life and beyond.
Exactly. Every decision we make, every action we take, sets a chain of events in motion.
It's like we're constantly creating ripples, and those ripples spread out and affect everything around us.
That's a great way to put it. And he reminds us that those consequences, they're not arbitrary punishments.
Right. It's not about God smiting us down or anything.
It's about natural law. It's a system of cause and effect.
A cosmic feedback loop designed to guide us towards growth. Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. This separation, this kingdom, this whole idea of spiritual evolution. It's like we're in the middle of this cosmic drama.
We are. And it's playing out right now, all around us.
And Abdrushan seems really urgent about all this. He keeps talking about this gathering thunderstorm, like something big is about to happen.
He believed we were living in a time of great upheaval.
Like a turning point in human history.
Yes. He talks about old structures collapsing, foundations being shaken.
It sounds kind of scary, honestly.
It can be, but it's also an opportunity.
An opportunity
Yeah. It's a chance to clear out what's not working.
to rebuild something better,
Yeah.
something more aligned with those divine laws.
Exactly. And he believed those who are aligned with the light will be guided and protected through all of this.
So it's not about running and hiding. It's about,
Learning to navigate the storm.
yes, about developing that inner strength and resilience that allows us to weather any challenge.
And this is where the power of femininity comes in, right?
Oh, right. Abdushan always comes back to that.
He does. He believed women have a crucial role to play in all of this.
So it's not just about women finding their own power. It's about sharing that power with the world.
Yes, he envisions a future where both women and men embrace that nurturing, life-giving energy.
The kind of energy that can heal and transform not just individuals, but entire societies.
Exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about separation, the kingdom of God, free will, suffering, the power of femininity.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And I know we've only just scratched the surface of Abdushan's teachings.
We have, but hopefully this deep dive has given you, our listeners, some new insights and maybe even inspired you to explore these ideas further.
And even amidst all the challenges and intensity, I feel a sense of hope,
Me too.
like a sense of possibility. We really do have the power to create a better future.
We do. And that's the heart of Abdushan's message, right? He doesn't shy away from the darkness,
Right.
but he always points us towards the light. He reminds us that we're not alone on this journey.
And that we have everything we need to create a world that reflects the beauty and harmony of the divine.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought from Abdushan.
Okay.
Become conscious creators of your own destiny. What choices will you make today that will shape your tomorrow?
That's a powerful question to carry with us. And as you continue on your journey, may you find the strength and wisdom and courage to create a life that's truly aligned with your soul's purpose and that contributes to a brighter, more harmonious future for all.
Beautifully said. And until next time, may the light guide you.
And may it be so.